The SOS arrived like a ghost signal, too old, too clean, and impossible to ignore. It wasn't a distress call from a ship. It was a scream from an entire civilization. And the last words burned into every human screen were simple, terrified, and unreal. We were wrong about you. Please, don't let us die. Most of the galaxy had forgotten Earth on purpose. Earth was a quarantine world, sealed, watched, isolated behind invisible borders and cold laws. Not because humans were weak. Because humans were dangerous in a way advanced species didn't understand. They called it Deathworld aggression, like it was a sickness. Like it was a flaw in the human design. Humans called it something else. They called it survival. The signal originated from a region of space marked as safe for 3,000 years, the Volanth Consortium. 7 allied species. One of the richest, calmest, most civilized groups ever recorded in the known spiral. They built crystal cities under gentle suns. They painted with light. They cured war like it was a virus. And now they were dying. The SOS carried images too, blurred, shaking footage from refugee transports and collapsing stations. Planets with their atmospheres boiling away. Skies packed with falling ash. A moon cracked into a ring of fire. In the middle of it all, shadows moving like living storms. The enemy had no face, no flag, no demand. Only hunger. In the underground command level of Orbital Arc 1 above Earth, the room stayed silent long after the transmission ended. Commander Jalen Rook stood with both hands on the metal table. He was tall, dark-haired, and looked carved out of old battles that no longer existed. His left eyebrow had a pale scar through it from a training accident years ago, back when training was the closest humans were allowed to come to real war. Around him, officers sat stiff and pale. Not from fear. From something sharper. Recognition. Because every human knew the quarantine history by heart. 2 centuries ago, an alien survey mission watched Earth from orbit and recorded humanity's wars. They saw bombs, burning cities, and a species that fought even while starving. The aliens panicked. The galaxy voted. Earth was locked behind a quarantine line. Any attempt to leave was intercepted. Any broadcast beyond the boundary was jammed. Too violent, they said. Too unpredictable. Too dangerous. Humans argued for a generation. Then they stopped arguing and started building. Quietly. Patiently. Rook tapped a control and replayed the last line again. The ambassador's voice was shaking. We don't deserve your help. But our children are being eaten alive. If there is anything in you besides anger, please answer. Lieutenant Sarah Nile, the youngest officer in the room, swallowed hard. Sir, they're asking us. Rook didn't answer immediately. He stared at the star map, at the blinking origin point of the SOS far beyond the quarantine border. They didn't ask, he said finally. They begged. Admiral Kenso Ma, older, heavier, with a calm face like an anchored ship, leaned forward. This could be a trap. Rook nodded once. It could. Sarah spoke again, softer. But it doesn't feel like a trap. Ma's eyes narrowed. Feelings are how people die. Rook looked at her, then at the rest of the room. And cold logic is how civilizations die. He turned and stepped toward the window. Earth hung below like a blue promise, oceans glittering, cities shining, storms curling like white claws across continents. 200 years of isolation had reshaped humanity. Nations had fused, then unfused, then fused again into something less fragile. Resources were shared. Space habitats were built. The old rivalries were still there, buried deep, but humans had learned a new rule. When the universe gets hostile, you stop fighting your family. Behind the commander, the room waited. Rook spoke without turning back. Open a channel to the unified assembly. Now. The screen shifted. A ring of faces appeared, leaders from Earth, Mars, and the Belt. Some wore formal collars. Others wore simple worker coats. The assembly didn't look like old Earth governments. It looked like a survival council. Chairwoman Amaya Voss appeared in the center. Her hair was grey and pulled back tight, and her eyes had the sharp patience of someone who had rebuilt a planet. "Commander Rook," she said. "We received the SOS." Rook nodded. "Confirmed authentic." A woman from the intelligence circle answered. "Yes. Signal structure matches Volanth encryption signatures. Also, the panic is real. You can't fake that kind of desperation." Voss inhaled slowly. "So, after 200 years, the galaxy finally remembers we exist." Another leader, a minor representative from the belt with oil-stained hands, snorted. "They didn't remember. Something scared them worse than we ever did." Rook's voice stayed steady. "The message includes visual data of the attacker. We don't have a name yet. But their method is consistent. They consume. They dismantle. They strip planets clean." One of the Mars delegates leaned forward. "Can we beat it?" The question didn't sound hopeful. It sounded practical. Rook didn't pretend. "We can fight it." "That's not the answer," Voss said. Rook met her eyes through the screen. "We can beat it if we're willing to do what the consortium refused to do." "Which is?" asked the Mars delegate. Rook's voice lowered. "Adapt mid-battle. Think like prey that refuses to stay prey." Silence. Then Voss spoke, careful and heavy. "Why should we help them?" There it was. The question everyone had been circling like a mine. Rook answered with no anger. "Because we are not what they decided we were." The belt representative scoffed. "They caged us." "They did," Rook agreed. "And we survived it. We rebuilt. We learned patience." He paused, letting the next words land clean. "But if we let billions die just to prove a point, then the galaxy was right to fear us." The room on the assembly call stirred. Some faces tightened. Others looked away. Voss leaned back, eyes narrowing in thought. "And if we go, we break quarantine." Rook nodded. "Yes." "And if we break quarantine," she said, "the galaxy learns that their fence never mattered." Rook didn't blink. "Then we make sure they learn something else too." Voss studied him for a long moment. Then she turned slightly and muttered something off-screen. Several leaders nodded. She looked back at Rook. "We vote." A glowing panel appeared. Names. Votes. One by one, the lights turned green. Not all of them. But enough. Voss exhaled like she had been holding her breath for 200 years. "The Unified Assembly authorizes a humanitarian intervention," she said. "Commander Rook, you will lead it." Sarah's eyes widened. Mars' mouth tightened. Rook only nodded once, as if he had known the answer already. "And Commander," Voss added, voice sharper, "do not turn us into what they feared." Rook's eyes hardened like forged steel. "We won't," he said. Then, after a beat, "We'll be worse to the enemy." The connection ended. Rook turned to his officers. "Initiate Protocol Ashwake." Sarah blinked. "Sir." "Ashwake is classified as obsolete," Admiral Marr finished grimly, "because it was designed for wars humanity hoped never to fight." Rook stepped forward. "And today, humanity stops hoping." Sirens didn't blare. Lights didn't flash red. Humans didn't panic. They moved. That was the difference between fear and readiness. Across Earth and its colonies, sealed hangars opened for the first time in decades. Dust-covered hulls were revealed beneath protective tarps. Ships that had been built as deterrents and then buried to keep peace. They weren't sleek, diplomatic vessels like alien craft. They weren't built to impress. They were built to endure. In the lunar shipyard, workers stared as cranes lifted the armored spine of the UHS Gravesong, a heavy assault carrier with plates thick enough to take meteor strikes. Nearby, the UHS Horizon Knife powered up for the first time, its engines rumbling like distant thunder through vacuum-dampening fields. On Mars, subterranean bunkers unlocked. Inside were weapon systems sealed under international agreements and political guilt. Rail cannons. Drone swarms. Electronic warfare suites that could blind sensors from half a system away. In the belt, miners volunteered in waves. People who had never worn uniforms, but had fought rock and vacuum their whole lives. Sarah walked beside Rook down the main corridor of Orbital Arc 1 as screens lit with schedules, ship manifests, and recruitment requests. "Sir," she said quietly, "do you think they'll accept our help?" Rook didn't slow. "They sent a message to monsters." He glanced at her. "They'll accept anything that can save them." Sarah hesitated. "And if they regret it?" Rook stopped at the end of the corridor where a sealed elevator waited. Above it was a black emblem, a simple circle crossed by a line. The symbol of quarantine. He placed his hand against it. The system scanned his palm, his DNA, his eye. The quarantine lock clicked. The elevator opened. Rook looked at Sarah, and for the first time his voice softened. "They already regret it," he said. That's why the message sounded like a confession. He stepped into the elevator. But regret doesn't stop a swarm. The doors began to close. Sarah watched him, then stepped inside too, like someone crossing a line in her own life. The elevator dropped, deep into the station's core, toward the command deck where humanity kept its oldest secret. Not superweapons. Not planet killers. Something far more human. A strategy built on one simple truth. If the universe brings you something unstoppable, you don't meet it with pride. You meet it with imagination. As the elevator descended, the star map above Earth updated. A new route appeared, highlighted in bright red. From Sol. Straight through the quarantine border. Toward a dying civilization that had once called humans monsters. In the far distance, beyond civilized space, the consuming swarm drifted closer, indifferent and endless. And somewhere in the cold dark, the Deathworlders began to wake up. The quarantine border wasn't a wall you could see. It was a set of invisible coordinates, a chain of sensor beacons, and an automated warning that had never needed to become a weapon, until now. As the human fleet approached the line, every ship's forward screens lit with the same message in sterile alien script. Turn back. Quarantine in effect. Violation will be intercepted. On the bridge of the UHS Gravesong, Commander Jalen Rook stood behind the navigation pit, hands clasped behind his back. The bridge was built like a bunker, thick frames, minimal glass, and layered shield controls. Humans didn't build ships as ornaments. They built them like the universe would try to kill them. Lieutenant Sarah Nile sat at her station, eyes locked on the tactical display. "The border sent a lock request," she said. "Old protocol. It's trying to identify us as a hostile." Admiral Kenso Ma's jaw tightened. "It's doing what it was built to do." Rook nodded once. "We're not here to fight the fence." He leaned toward the comm officer. "Transmit authorization code. Full clearance." The comm officer hesitated. "Sir, the code is on a sealed list. If we send it, we reveal we've had access to it for years." Rook didn't blink. "We're crossing the line. Secrets don't matter anymore." The code went out in a tight burst, clean, encrypted, unmistakably human and unmistakably prepared. The border system paused. Then a new message appeared. Identity confirmed. Sole authority. Status. Unexpected. Advisory. Do not proceed. Sarah's voice dropped. "It recognizes us." Ma's eyes were hard. "And it still thinks we're a mistake." Rook watched the line, just a thin arc on the map. The border that had defined human existence for 200 years. He spoke calmly. "Helm. Take us through." The fleet moved. And nothing fired. No hidden cannons. No alien interceptors. No automated mines. Just silence. The quarantine line didn't stop them because it couldn't. It had never been built to stop humans. It had been built to reassure everyone else. As the last ship crossed, a quiet ripple passed through every system. The human fleet sensors unlocked new star charts. Old data restrictions vanished like fog in sunlight. A whole galaxy unfolded. Sarah stared at the expanded map, Her breath caught. Sir, there's so much. Rook's expression didn't soften. And most of it is burning. He stepped forward. Bring up the consortium relay. A holographic window opened. For a moment, there was nothing but static, like the galaxy itself didn't know how to speak to humans anymore. Then a face appeared. She wasn't the ambassador from the SOS. This one had pale gold skin and 3 narrow eyes, each trembling. She wore a council crest that looked hastily pinned, like someone had grabbed it in panic. Her voice came out fast, broken, and terrified. This is Meridian Station Control. Identify yourselves. Identify yourselves immediately. The translator struggled for half a second, then smoothed the words into human English. Rook stepped into the comm frame. Commander Jalen Rook, Sol Fleet. We received your distress call. The alien froze. Her eyes widened. Her mouth opened and closed like her brain couldn't decide whether to scream or pray. You're real, she whispered. Rook kept his voice steady. We're real. And we're coming. The alien's hands shook in front of her, as if she wanted to reach through the screen. The swarm will be here soon. Meridian is full of refugees. Her voice cracked. She swallowed, forced herself to continue. We don't have weapons that work. We don't have fighters. We don't have anything. Rook glanced at Ma, then back at the screen. Where is Ambassador Teles Wren? The alien flinched at the name. She is in council shelter. She hasn't slept. She blames herself for sending the message. Rook held the gaze. Tell her she made the right choice. The alien looked like she might collapse. You don't understand. Humans are the stories. Rook interrupted gently. The stories are outdated. Ma's expression said he wasn't sure that was fully true. Sarah leaned in and spoke for the first time, voice careful and soft. We're here to help. The alien stared at Sarah like she was seeing something impossible, a human voice without rage. Behind the alien's shoulders, movement flickered, panicked staff running, warning lights flashing, a distant tremor that shook the screen. The alien's breath hitched. They're closer than we thought. The feed cut to another channel without warning. A larger hologram appeared, a wide council room packed with leaders from multiple species. Their faces were different shapes, colors, and textures, some scaled, some feathered, some smooth and luminous. All of them looked the same in one way. Afraid. At the center sat the ambassador from the SOS. Teles Wren. Her silver skin looked dull now. Her eyes were shadowed, but sharp. She didn't look like someone who had lived in peace for 50 years. She looked like someone who had watched a civilization drown. When she spoke, her voice was steady, too steady. Commander Rook, she said. We received your signal. We did not believe, we did not dare believe, that you would answer. Rook inclined his head. You asked for help. We're responding. The council's murmurs rose like a disturbed nest. One representative, a tall green-skinned being with a long throat, stood suddenly, trembling with anger. This is madness, he shouted. You have brought predators into our space. This is the end of us either way. Teles Wren's eyes flashed. Sit down, Kaelin. He didn't. They will conquer us. They will take our worlds. Rook spoke before Teles could. His tone was calm, not offended. We're not here to conquer your worlds. Kaelin's throat pulsed. Then why come at all? Rook's answer was simple. Because you're dying. The council fell silent again. Teles Wren leaned forward. Commander, you must understand our fear. For 200 years, we told ourselves we did the right thing by quarantining you. We called it protection. She looked down, shame flickering across her face like a crack in ice. But it was fear. We feared what we saw in your history. Rook didn't deny it. You saw the worst of us. Yes, Teles whispered. And we assumed that was all you were. She looked up again, and her eyes shone with something that wasn't fear anymore. It was desperation sharpened into honesty. "Tell me the truth," she said. "Are you here because you want to help, or because you want revenge?" The bridge was silent. Sarah stopped breathing. Ma watched Rook carefully, like this was the real battle. Rook held Telly's Wren's gaze. "We're here because we know what it is to be trapped," he said. "And we know what it is to survive anyway." He paused, then added something harder. "But understand this, Ambassador. If your swarm reaches Meridian, we will not negotiate. We will not plead. We will not play by your rules of polite war." Kaylin's voice trembled. "There are rules." Rook's eyes turned cold. "Your rules got you eaten." The words hit like a slap across the council. Telly's Wren didn't look offended. She looked relieved. She nodded once, like a person placing their last hope into a dangerous hand. "Then tell us," she said. "What do you need?" Rook turned slightly. Sarah saw the shift in him. This wasn't a soldier talking now. This was a planner. "A map of swarm movement," he said. "Their last 3 engagements. Every sensor record you have. Biological samples, if any exist. And access to your shipyards. We will need docking and resupply." A representative with crystalline skin spoke shakily. "We can give you data. But our shipyards are not built for war." Rook replied immediately. "Good. We'll fix that." The council erupted into anxious murmurs again. Telly's Wren raised her hands, and the noise faded. "There is one more thing," she said quietly. Rook nodded. "Say it." Telly's Wren's voice lowered. "When we say swarm, it sounds like insects. It sounds simple." Her eyes tightened. "It is not simple. It learns. It adapts. It remembers." Ma leaned forward. "How fast?" Telly's hesitated, then answered with a broken kind of honesty. "Faster than us." Rook looked at the sensor data feed streaming in now. Patterns, losses, worlds blinking out one by one. Sarah whispered, almost to herself. "Then how do we beat something that learns faster?" Rook didn't answer right away. He watched the tactical map. He watched Meridian Station, crowded with refugees, fragile as glass. He watched the swarm's projected vector. And he smiled. Not a cruel smile. A human smile. The kind that appears when someone finally sees a puzzle worth solving. "We don't beat it by being stronger," he said quietly. He looked at Sarah. "We beat it by being weirder." Ma frowned. "Weirder?" Rook nodded. "Aliens build perfect machines. Predictable. Clean. Logical." He tapped the table. "Humans build duct-taped miracles that shouldn't work, and do anyway." He turned to the comm officer. "Send this to the council." The officer blinked. "What is it, sir?" Rook's voice was steady. "A promise." The channel opened. Telly's Wren's face returned, wary. Rook spoke clearly. "Ambassador, you asked for Deathworlders." He paused, then delivered the line like a hammer. "You're going to get engineers." Telly's Wren stared. "What does that mean?" she whispered. Rook didn't explain yet. Instead, he gave the order that made the entire bridge go still. "All ships," he said. "Prepare for first contact at Meridian." Then, softer, like a private vow to the stars. "And prepare to make the swarm regret it ever learned our name." Far ahead, Meridian Station drifted under its failing shield grid, surrounded by refugee craft like frightened birds. And beyond the station, in the black sea of space, something vast moved. Not a fleet. Not a formation. A crawling shadow. A living tide that didn't care about treaties, or peace, or mercy. Only consumption. The humans were close enough now that the first consortium patrol ships appeared, small, elegant, and shaking as they approached the human dreadnoughts like mice circling wolves. Inside those alien ships, crews stared through viewports at the human fleet. They expected sharp angles, blood-red markings, screaming threats. Instead they saw grey hulls, scar-like plating, and quiet discipline. No taunts. No warning shots. Just a fleet that moved like it had been waiting for this moment its whole life. As Meridian grew in the viewport, Sarah felt something tighten in her chest. Not fear. Pressure. The weight of history cracking open. She looked at Rook. "Sir, when we arrive, what do we do first?" Rook's answer came without hesitation. "We listen." He pointed toward the incoming data. "We learn." Then his voice hardened. "And then we change the rules of the universe." The gravesong slowed as it approached docking range. Meridian Station's external lights flickered. A docking arm trembled like a weak hand reaching for strength. And somewhere inside the station, billions of frightened beings waited to see whether the monsters of Earth had come to save them. Or to finish them. Meridian Station had been designed for beauty, not survival. Its outer rings were elegant curves of crystal alloy and light thread panels, meant to welcome diplomats and artists, not warships. Now those same rings were packed tight with refugee craft, scarred hulls, failing engines, desperate pilots clinging to a place that still pretended to be safe. When the first human ship docked, the station shook. Not from impact. From fear. Inside the main concourse, thousands of beings froze as the docking alarms echoed. Conversations died. Children were pulled close. Guards tightened grips on weapons they knew would not help. Then the airlock doors opened. Humans stepped through. They didn't march. They didn't shout. They didn't spread out like conquerors. They walked. Calm. Focused. Purposeful. Commander Jalen Rook led the group, flanked by Lieutenant Sarah Nile and Admiral Ma. Behind them came others, engineers with tool harnesses, medics carrying compact kits, analysts already studying holographic displays projected from wrist units. They wore dark uniforms without decoration. No symbols of conquest. Only a small mark on the shoulder, a simple outline of Earth. A nearby Valanthi guard whispered, voice trembling, "They look ordinary." Tellys Wren heard it. She stood waiting at the far end of the concourse, posture straight despite exhaustion. When Rook approached, she studied him closely. This was the monster she had summoned. He looked tired. Not cruel. Not savage. Just ready. "Welcome to Meridian," she said. Rook inclined his head. "Thank you for trusting us." She almost laughed at that. Almost cried. They moved quickly into the command core. Around them, consortium officials stared openly. Some recoiled. Others leaned forward with desperate curiosity. Inside the core, holographic space filled the room, Meridian at the center, swarm vectors crawling closer like spreading ink. Dr. Lena Kovacs stepped forward from the human group. She was short, sharp-eyed, and already halfway through a data stream before introductions finished. "Biology matches distributed hive intelligence," she said. "But there's something wrong." Tellys Wren frowned. "Wrong." Lena nodded. "It's too controlled. Too intentional. This isn't just consumption. It's testing." A low murmur rippled through the alien officers. Rook folded his arms. "Testing what?" Lena's fingers danced through the display. "Defenses. Reactions. Patterns. It sacrifices drones to learn how you respond." Ma grimaced. Like a boxer feeling out an opponent. Tellys Wren's voice dropped. "We never noticed that." "You wouldn't," Lena said gently. "Your tactics never changed." The words stung, but Tellys didn't argue. She only nodded. A warning siren cut through the room. "Contact," shouted a sensor officer. "Swarm Vanguard entering system perimeter." The hologram shifted. Dozens of dark shapes emerged from the void. Not ships. Not creatures. Something in between. They moved in flowing clusters, like schools of predators sharing one mind. Energy rippled across their surfaces as they adjusted formation in response to sensor pings. The room filled with fear again. Tellys Wren looked at Rook. "This is where our fleets died." Rook nodded. "This is where yours did." He turned to his crew. "Let's not repeat history." "Fleet," Admiral Ma said calmly over comms. "Hold position. No firing unless ordered. Tellys Wren stared. You're not attacking. Rook shook his head. Not yet. On the swarm's leading edge, a cluster broke away and surged forward, fast, aggressive, probing. The station's shields flared weakly. Alien officers shouted, "Fire! Fire now!" Rook's voice cut through the panic. Negative. Sarah looked at him sharply. Sir. Let it touch the shield, Rook said. The swarm cluster slammed into Meridian's barrier. The shield flickered. Energy screamed. The station trembled. Data exploded across Lena's displays. There, she snapped. See that? It's sampling the frequency, mapping the harmonic response. The swarm pulled back, just slightly. Rook smiled thinly. It learns by touching. He raised his voice. Now. The human fleet didn't fire weapons. They fired noise. A burst of chaotic electromagnetic interference slammed outward, not a clean pulse, but layered, staggered, deliberately messy. Old Earth frequencies mixed with random modulation. Music, static, corrupted data, and false sensor echoes all at once. The swarm hesitated. Actually hesitated. On the display, its formations wavered. Clusters collided. Signals overlapped. Lena's eyes lit up. It doesn't know how to process this. It's trying to categorize. A new alert blared. The swarm adapted. Its clusters tightened, reorganizing, shedding confused drones and reinforcing others. Tellys Wren's breath caught. It's learning again. Rook nodded. Good. He turned to Sarah. Phase 2. Sarah swallowed, then nodded. Deploy Trickster Net. Across the human fleet, something unexpected launched. Not missiles, not fighters. Thousands of tiny objects scattered like glitter in the dark. The swarm surged toward them. And passed straight through. The objects weren't solid. They were decoys. Holographic mass signatures layered with heat, radiation, and false biology. Each one broadcasting something slightly different. The swarm reacted violently. Clusters split. Recombined. Split again. Sir, Ma said quietly, or creeping into his voice. They're arguing. Lena laughed once, sharp and amazed. It's a single intelligence trying to reconcile conflicting inputs. We've turned its certainty into doubt. Tellys Wren stared at the chaos unfolding. You're confusing it. Rook shook his head. We're doing worse. He leaned forward. We're making it choose. The swarm suddenly lashed out, firing energy beams in wide arcs, wasting power, destroying decoys, hitting nothing of value. Rook raised his hand. Now we hit. Human ships fired. Not all at once. Not in formation. Rail cannons thundered from unexpected angles. Drones erupted from carrier bays, moving unpredictably, some deliberately crashing to create debris fields. One human frigate deliberately cut its engines, drifting dead in space. The swarm pounced and detonated into a cloud of shrapnel and EMP as the frigate's reactor breached on command. Tellys Wren gasped. They sacrificed a ship. Rook didn't look away. Unmanned. Old hull. Remote piloted. Ma added softly, we learned a long time ago not to waste people when machines will do. The swarm reeled. For the first time since it entered the system. It retreated. Not far. But enough. Cheers erupted in the command core, alien voices crying out in disbelief, relief, fragile hope. Tellys Wren sank into her chair, hands shaking. We've never seen it pull back before. Rook exhaled slowly. That wasn't victory. No, Lena agreed. That was introduction. The swarm's remaining clusters regrouped at the edge of the system. New formations emerged. Heavier. Slower. Smarter. Lena's voice hardened. It's building a countermodel. Sarah felt a chill. So what do we do? Rook straightened. We evolve faster. He turned to Tellys Wren. Ambassador, your people built wonders because you believed the universe was kind. She nodded faintly. We survived because we assumed it wasn't, Rook continued. From now on, we fight together. Teles met his gaze. What do you need? Rook didn't hesitate. Access to your infrastructure. Your reactors. Your fabrication systems. Your scientists. A pause. And your trust. The council representatives looked at one another. Fear still lived in their eyes, but something else had joined it. Hope. Teles Wren stood. You have it, she said. Outside Meridian Station, human engineers were already moving. Docking arms reinforced. Shield harmonics rewritten. Alien systems cracked open and rebuilt with human chaos laid on top. The station was changing. Not into a fortress. Into a trap. Far beyond the system's edge, the swarm observed. It had encountered prey that didn't flee. Prey that didn't behave. Prey that hurt it in ways it didn't understand. And for the first time in its endless existence, the swarm felt something new. Uncertainty. And uncertainty, in a universe ruled by predators, was the beginning of fear. The swarm did not retreat because it was afraid. It retreated because it was thinking. Far beyond Meridian, in the cold dark where stars were only reference points, the hive mind reorganized. Entire clusters dissolved and reformed. Drones were recycled. New variants were grown in minutes, not years. It had encountered resistance before. It had never encountered confusion. Inside Meridian Station, the mood shifted from panic to controlled urgency. Humans and aliens worked side by side in ways the galaxy had never imagined. Alien engineers brought elegant designs. Humans broke them open, rewired them, and added redundancy on top of redundancy. Nothing human-built was allowed to fail cleanly. That was the rule. Commander Jalen Rook stood on an observation deck overlooking the station's outer ring. Below him, human engineers welded reinforcement plates directly onto alien crystal hulls. It looked crude. It looked wrong. It worked. Lieutenant Sarah Nile joined him, helmet tucked under her arm. We've never modified a civilian station this fast, she said. Rook nodded. Neither have they. Sarah hesitated. Sir, some of the aliens are scared of us again. Rook glanced down. Good. She blinked. Good. Fear keeps people honest, he said. Panic makes them useless. Respect makes them listen. Sarah watched a Valanthi technician quietly hand tools to a human welder without being asked. They're listening. Inside the command core, Dr. Lena Kovacs stared at the latest swarm projections. Her face was grim. It's coming back, she said. Not probing. Not testing. This is a full assault. Teles Wren's hands tightened around the console edge. How long? 23 minutes. The room fell quiet. 23 minutes was nothing. Barely enough time to finish a thought. Barely enough time to say goodbye. Rook stepped forward. All fleet elements, report. Voices filled the air. Grave song ready. Horizon knife standing by. Drone wings armed. Civilian evacuations complete. Teles Wren looked at the tactical display. We cannot evacuate Meridian fast enough. Rook shook his head. Then we don't evacuate. Ma turned sharply. You're suggesting we hold. I'm suggesting, Rook said calmly, we let them think they're winning. Lena looked up, eyes sharp. You want to bait the hive. Rook nodded. It learns by success. So we give it success. Teles Wren's voice trembled. That sounds dangerous. Rook met her gaze. That's because it is. He turned to the fleet channel. Initiate Project Hearthfire. There was a pause. Then Admiral Ma spoke quietly, Sir. Hearthfire was theoretical. Rook's expression didn't change. So was the swarm beating 7 civilizations. Across the system, human ships shifted position, not into defensive lines, but into gaps. Spaces opened. Weak points appeared. The swarm noticed. It surged forward like a tidal wave of metal and flesh. Alien officers cried out in horror. They're breaking through. Human ships fired just enough to be seen, then fell back. A destroyer took a hit and spun away, venting atmosphere in a brilliant cloud. Tellys Wren's breath caught. You're losing ships. Rook's voice was steady. We're spending them. The swarm poured in, confident now. Its formations tightened, optimized for destruction. It ignored decoys. It ignored noise. It went straight for Meridian Station. Lena whispered, "It's committed." Rook nodded. "Good." He tapped his console. Hearthfire, now. At the heart of Meridian Station, deep beneath layers of crystal and alloy, human engineers had built something the consortium never would have allowed. A resonance chamber. Not a weapon. A reaction. Human scientists had discovered long ago that complex systems, biological or mechanical, hated unpredictability. The swarm relied on perfect internal synchronization. Humans were about to break that. As the swarm closed in, Meridian's shields dropped. Alien screams echoed through the command core. Tellys Wren stared at Rook in disbelief. "What have you done?" Rook didn't answer. He watched the swarm cross the threshold. Then the station sang. Not sound. Vibration. A cascading resonance burst outward, tuned not to destroy matter, but to desynchronize thought. Every frequency layered, offset, and deliberately imperfect. The swarm shuddered. Entire clusters froze mid-motion. Others crashed into each other. For the first time, the hive mind lost cohesion. Lena's voice shook with awe. We're interrupting its decision loop. It can't agree with itself. The swarm lashed out blindly. Human ships surged back in. This time, there was no hesitation. Railguns punched through immobilized clusters. Drones detonated inside the swarm's mass. Electronic warfare tore at its coordination like claws. The swarm tried to adapt. It always adapted. But this time, adaptation meant choosing which version of itself was right. And it couldn't. Tellys Wren watched in stunned silence as the unstoppable force began to unravel. They're fighting themselves, she whispered. Rook nodded once. Every system does when you introduce enough noise. The swarm began to collapse inward. Drones disconnected. Control nodes went dark. Then something changed. A massive structure emerged from the swarm center, larger than any previous cluster. Dense. Armored. Focused. Lena stiffened. It's forming a core intelligence. A command body. Ma's voice hardened. It's learning how to learn faster. The massive entity turned, directly toward the gravesong. Energy spiked. Rook didn't move. All ships, he said quietly. Fallback pattern echo. The fleet scattered. Except one ship. The gravesong stayed. Sarah's eyes widened. Sir. Rook raised a hand. It's coming for me. Let it. The swarm's core fired. The gravesong's shields flared, then failed. Alarms screamed. The ship shook violently. Tellys Wren cried out. You'll be destroyed. Rook smiled. No. The gravesong didn't explode. It opened. Sections of its hull peeled back, revealing something the swarm had never seen. Inside the ship wasn't just weapons. It was people. Human soldiers in armored suits launched directly into space, not fleeing, but charging. Boarding the swarm. Lena gasped. They're boarding it. Ma's voice was tight with pride. Close combat. The swarm didn't understand this. Its drones weren't built for individual combat. They weren't built for fear. Humans were. Inside the swarm's core, human soldiers detonated EMP charges, planted signal disruptors, and tore apart biological relays with brutal efficiency. They didn't fight like a machine. They fought like survivors. Minutes later, the swarm's core went dark. The remaining clusters froze. Then began to drift. Dead. Silence fell over the system. On Meridian Station, no one spoke. No one breathed. Then Tellys Wren slowly turned to Rook. "You didn't just defeat it," she said. "You broke it." Rook looked tired. "That was just one battle," he said. "There will be more." She nodded, tears streaming freely now. "But now the galaxy knows something." He met her gaze. "Yes," he said quietly. "It knows we don't wait to be saved." Outside the station, wreckage drifted like frozen rain. Human ships regrouped. Some damaged. Some lost. But standing. And across the galaxy, as news of the impossible victory began to spread, civilizations that had once feared Earth felt something new tighten in their collective minds. Not terror. Not relief. Respect. Because the monsters of the Deathworld had not come to conquer. They had come to protect. And they were very, very good at it. The silence after battle was never truly silent. Wreckage drifted slowly past Meridian Station, glowing faintly as it cooled. Broken fragments of the swarm, once unstoppable, once endless, floated like the remains of a storm that had finally spent itself. Emergency lights blinked across damaged human ships. Rescue craft moved carefully, methodically, pulling survivors from the dark. Humans worked. That was the first thing the aliens noticed. There was no celebration. No victory cries. No banners raised. Human crews moved with quiet urgency, patching hulls, stabilizing reactors, treating wounded, human and alien alike. On Meridian Station, the command core felt different now. Not safe. But alive. Ambassador Tellys Wren stood near the viewport, watching a human medical shuttle dock with a damaged Valenthy cruiser. She saw human medics rush aboard without hesitation, oxygen masks already prepared for bodies not shaped like their own. She swallowed hard. Commander Jalen Rook approached, his uniform scorched and torn at one shoulder. "Your casualties." She turned. "Hi. But, not extinction." Her voice broke on the word. "Because of you." Rook shook his head. "Because of us." She studied him carefully. "You lost ships. People." "Yes." "And you still came." "Yes." There was no pride in his voice. Just fact. Inside the station's council chamber, representatives from the consortium gathered again, this time standing, not sitting. Some leaned on canes or assistants. Some had bandages. All of them looked shaken. But something else had replaced the despair in their eyes. Clarity. A tall crystalline delegate spoke first. "The swarm has been halted in this sector. Other systems report confusion, fragmentation. Your methods disrupted it." A murmur rippled through the chamber. A Morvashi elder stepped forward, voice low. "We believed peace meant never preparing for violence." Rook didn't interrupt. "We believed fear could be legislated away," the elder continued. "We were wrong." Tellys Wren turned to the council. "We survived because humans did not share our illusions." She looked at Rook again. "Commander, the galaxy will ask what comes next." Rook nodded. "So will humanity." Outside the chamber, news spread faster than ships could travel. Human fleets had crossed the quarantine. Human ships had fought the swarm. Human soldiers had boarded it. Across distant systems, civilizations that had ignored the consortium's pleas watched the footage in stunned silence. Analysts replayed the battle again and again, trying to understand how an isolated species had succeeded where empires had failed. They saw chaos used as a weapon. They saw sacrifice calculated, not wasted. They saw humans running toward danger, not for conquest, not for glory, but because someone else could not. And they felt something deeply uncomfortable. Shame. On Earth, crowds gathered in silence as the feeds played. There were no cheers. Just stillness. Families watched ships with familiar hull markings burn and survive. Children asked quiet questions. Elders closed their eyes and remembered the quarantine years. In the Unified Assembly, Chairwoman Amaya Voss stood before a room that had never felt heavier. "Humanity has been seen," she said. "Not as monsters. Not as myths. She paused. But as what we choose to be. Back at Meridian, Dr. Lena Kovacs reviewed the latest swarm data. Her face was pale with exhaustion. It's not gone, she said. It's retreating. Learning. It will return. Rook nodded. Everything that survives learns. Tellys Wren asked the question everyone feared. When it comes back, will you still stand with us? Rook met her eyes. That depends. The chamber held its breath. On what? She asked. On whether the galaxy learns the same lesson we did. Silence. Rook continued, his voice calm but unyielding. Humans will not be your shield while you pretend danger doesn't exist. We won't fight your wars alone while you debate comfort. The words were hard. Necessary. Tellys Wren bowed her head. Then teach us. Rook blinked. Teach you what? How to survive a universe that isn't kind, she said. For the first time since the SOS, Rook smiled fully. First lesson, he said. You stop fearing who you are. He gestured toward the viewport, where human and alien ships floated side by side. Second lesson, he added, you stop fearing us. Weeks later, the quarantine border was officially dismantled. Not shattered. Dismantled. Beacon by beacon, law by law, treaty by treaty. Human engineers helped remove the systems that had once caged them. Alien diplomats signed documents with hands that still trembled, but did not withdraw. The galaxy did not erupt into chaos. It adjusted. Human fleets did not spread to conquer. They spread to rebuild. To reinforce. To teach others how to prepare without surrendering compassion. Some civilizations welcomed them. Some refused. Humanity respected both choices. Because humans knew something the galaxy was still learning. You cannot force trust. But you can earn it, again and again. Commander Rook stood once more at a viewport, this time aboard Meridian Station, now permanently reinforced and humming with mixed technology. Lieutenant Sarah Nile joined him. Sir, she said quietly, do you think they'll ever stop fearing us? Rook watched a group of alien children laugh as a human engineer showed them a small floating drone shaped like a bird. No, he said. And that's fine. Sarah frowned. It is. Fear isn't the enemy, Rook replied. Ignorance is. He turned to her. They feared us because they didn't understand us. Now they do. She smiled faintly. And what do they understand? Rook looked out at the stars, vast, dangerous, beautiful. That we are the people you call, he said, when the universe stops pretending. Far away, deep in dark space, fragments of the swarm drifted. Some were dead. Some were not. But they no longer moved with certainty. They remembered the noise. The chaos. The pain. They remembered the species that didn't fight like prey. They remembered humans. And for the first time in its endless existence, the swarm hesitated before advancing. The galaxy had changed. Not because a monster had arrived, but because monsters had chosen to protect. And in that choice, humanity proved something no treaty ever could. They were not the galaxy's greatest danger. They were its last defense.